Okay, this is the first in a series of videos where we're going to be looking at the gaming capabilities of the new 2010 MacBook Air. This is the 11.6-inch model. It has the base CPU 1.4 gigahertz Core 2 Duo. It does have the RAM upgrade to 4 gigabytes of 1066 megahertz RAM, DDR2, and it's got the base 64 gigabyte hard drive. Today we're going to be looking at Civ 5. I am using Boot Camp and Windows 7 Home Premium. There is a Mac port for Civ 5, but I have not tested it yet. I may take a look at that in another video, but for today, we're going to be looking at the PC version. So I'm going to go ahead. I've got FRAPS running in the background here, so we're going to see actual frame rates in the top right-hand corner. And I'll comment upon them a bit, but you can keep an eye on it. One thing about having the solid-state hard drive in the MacBook Air, theoretically, things like loading into a game for the first time should go faster than they would using a traditional hard drive, but I'm not really seeing a huge difference at all. I haven't timed it out, but it feels like it takes about as long to load on this machine as it does on my desktop or on my HTPC. Okay, so I'm just going to click play. But I'm going to launch that version, and you'll see it go. It's thinking, goes black, and in a second the opening cinematic is going to start playing. You cannot skip this opening cinematic until the game is finished loading in the background. You can go into an INI file and disable the opening cinematic, but then you're just looking at a blank screen while the game takes exactly the same amount of time to load in the background. So I'm not sure that there's a real benefit to it. But on my desktop, I do have it set up so that it will not play. But yes, it will not let you skip at all. But now that I've hit some buttons, once it loads in the background, it should pop on out. You'll notice that the frame rate during this opening cinematic is terrible. It is very, very chuggy, but luckily cinematics are not gameplay, so who cares? Okay, so we're into this opening menu. You see here we've got our frame rate. It's currently at 186, which is higher than we will ever see it again once we start playing. I'm going to go to the options here and show you what I've got set up. One thing about testing this game is that it is a huge pain in the ass to change your graphics quality settings, because you cannot make any changes whatsoever while you're playing the game. You have to exit out to the menu, and then you make your changes, and those changes will not take effect until you close all the way back out to the desktop and then relaunch the game, and we just saw how long that takes. Quite a bit of it. That is not to say that I have it absolutely dialed in the way you would want to do it, or even optimized for how I would like to see it. It's the best that I've come up with so far. It seems like a pretty good balance of not looking like total ass while still running smoothly enough to be playable. So I've got it set full screen. Anti-aliasing is off entirely. My screen resolution is 1366 by 768, which is the native resolution of the 11.6-inch Air screen. Leader sync quality is minimum. That means you've got no animation on that. You could actually kick this up a bit to the next level, I'm sure, without it really impacting anything. That's only going to be when you're interacting with the other characters, but it doesn't really matter either. I don't care if they're animated or not. I tend to skip through them as quickly as I can. Overlay detail is low. Shadow quality is off. Fog of war quality is low. This can go to a lower setting, which is minimum, and I'll point out what difference that might make. The frame rate does get a little bit higher if you go to minimum, but it, to me, negatively impacts the look of the game in a way that I don't really like. It does not affect the play of the game, but I'll show you, or I'll describe to you that difference a little later. Terrain detail is set to minimum. I've played with this a little bit, and honestly I'm not seeing a huge drop in frame rate between minimum, low, and medium. Terrain detail seems to be not where the bottleneck is as far as graphical performance goes on this. I don't remember why I've got this set to minimum right now, although I think I may kind of have a theory, and I'll show you a bit of that. terrain tessellation level low. The 320M is really not a chip built for dealing with tessellation. Any game that you're playing, if tessellation is an option, turn that off or as low as you can. Terrain shadow detail off. Shadows in general are another thing that will cause a lot of issues. Water quality low, texture quality low, and so, except, I'm going to go into single player, setup game. We're going to do a standard size map. Okay, so in these menus where we're not having to do anything, we're still hovering in the high 180s. So awesome, yay. Lots of frames when there's nothing going on. Okay, it's building the game world, and you'll see the frame rate has dropped all the way to 2. It could very well drop down to 1 or even 0 during this period of time, but it doesn't matter because it's just a still image. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting in the background. My mouse is still fairly smooth. A little bit of jerking, although that could be because it's only showing up when I first move the mouse. It probably has more to do with the fact that it's a Bluetooth mouse and it will go to sleep if you don't use it for a few seconds. A lot of people complain about that with this mouse. It doesn't really bother me that much. It just means there's a little jerk when you wake it back up. Okay, I'm going to begin my journey. Okay, so you might have seen the frame rate just dropped all the way down to 1, hesitated for a second, and now we're back up to 26, 25. So found the city, select my warriors, going to set them to explore automatically. And you'll see there are little hiccups here, small amounts of jank, as far as making the movement not quite so smooth. There's a little bit of screen tearing. I'm not sure if that's going to come across on the camera or not, but it's not the end of the world, really. I'm going to start building a worker, research. What have we got going around here? Okay, we've got a mine already. We're going to need trapping in a little bit. Let's start with mining. I don't know why I'm bothering to consider my build order at all. Okay, so I've ended my turn, and you'll see that the frame rate drops down into the single digits or even down to 1 while it's processing the AI's turn. But much like with the loading screen, when it's processing the AI's turn, you can't do anything anyway. So it doesn't bother me very much that it's dropping down that low. Now that it's back to my turn, you can see if I scroll around very quickly, it dropped under 20 there for a second. Now here's sort of an interesting tidbit. What I have noticed with Civ 5, and I don't have an explanation for this behavior, but when I first start a game, the frame rate is very low, in the 20s. 30 is kind of high, and then a few minutes into it, you've seen it, it's actually just kicked up. It will suddenly shoot up. So you see how it's up to 89, 90 now. I don't know what's going on. It's like it's thinking about something in the background for the first couple of minutes of the game, and then it settles into it, and suddenly the frame rate shoots up. And so now we've got much smoother movement. Still a little bit of screen tearing, but much nicer than it was before, 93, 92. Now here I'm going to show you something. One of the limitations here, because yeah, it's at 91, 92 right now, but I'm also zoomed as far in as I can. You can change the zoom in settings though in that same INI file in the user settings to determine how far in you want to zoom. If I zoom all the way out, it's dropped down to 20. Then climbs back up a bit. We're in the mid 50s. Closer in I am, the higher the frame rate. When I zoom out, slows down. And this is true on all of my systems. I've checked this. It just has to do with the fact that when you zoom out, it's having to draw that much more of the world. And I'm guessing that they must not have optimized the way the textures work, so that you're not drawing in simpler versions of the textures when you're further away. It's having to think about all of the information for the area that's explored, which right now is not very much at all. And you'll see the cloud cover here. If you were to set the cloud of war down to minimum, all of this cloud cover showing the bits of the map that you have not explored yet become black blocks, hexagonal blocks. And it doesn't affect the gameplay, like I said, but they look so drastically different, and I'm so used to seeing the cloud cover that I found it kind of jarring and annoying. And now I'm going to exit out of this, and I'm actually going to load in a late game scenario so that you can see a bit of that. I think I've got one saved in this Steam cloud. Yeah, okay, this is on turn 237 in the Renaissance era. This was actually from, I think it was the very first game I played, which was on my desktop. But I've saved this scenario into the cloud so that I could load it up here. So I'm going to load, and I think what we're going to see is that it's going to take much longer to load this game than it does to set up a new one. So we're down to 2 frames a second, but again, it's a static image. But you're going to be stuck looking at the screen for a little while if you're loading in a bunch of units in a fairly fully explored map. 0 frames a second. Can't get much lower than that. And we're still waiting. And we're waiting, we're waiting, we're waiting. Like I said, it takes a very long time to load in. Solid state drive or not, this is not speedy. Okay, so it's loaded. You'll see single digit FPS down here. Now what we're going to see is much like last time, for the first few minutes, the frame rate is going to be lower. Now, if I zoom all the way out, it has dropped down to 13 frames a second. But you can see much more of the map is explored. There are a lot of units on the field. We've got cities all over the place. And we'll see, okay, there it is. Maybe. We're up to 50. If I zoom all the way out, I am in the teens. But I will say that even there, okay, I'm dropping all the way down to 10, which is not good. I certainly know that there are people out there who feel that under anything, even a smidge under 60 frames per second is absolutely unplayable. And for certain game types, I would agree that anything under 30 can certainly be a problem. But I think that the 60 frame, people who are hung up on the 60 frame benchmark are kind of nuts. Yeah, I mean, that's only 12 frames a second, and yet if I didn't have that number in the top corner telling me that, I wouldn't guess it, and it's perfectly fine. Because all I'm doing is zooming out, whipping over to find a unit or town that I'm looking for, and then zooming in where the frame rate skyrockets up. We're at 65. Yeah, so not bad for an ultra portable, or I mean, really, let's face it, it's a very expensive netbook. We are squeezing into a tiny package much more performance than I would have expected. The use of the 320M GPU is really pretty impressive. And we're going to look at how impressive it is with some other games in videos that follow this one up. So stay tuned.